Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream, we work on a Django app that I'm building. It happens to be a homeschool application, so that's the context of the stream. But we build out features for the Django app, and I walk you through the process of how to build Django features in an app that has been around for a while that is actually serving real customers. So this is a real context, not just a tutorial of some kind. Tonight, we're going to continue on my app, and we had just finished up a project last week working on PDF reports, and it's mostly wrapped up, and there's a little bit more on the marketing side for me to do to make it live to my users, but the actual technical stuff is done. So we're ready to move on to whatever the next thing is. And I want to, before getting into another project, take some time to work on some usability bugs and just improvements in general to the application that's been reported by customers recently. So that's going to be the focus for this evening. And along the way, I'm hoping we can have a chat about whatever's on your mind or things related to Python and Django. In fact, you're welcome to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. That's what I'm here for. So let's get started with things. So we have our list of issues here, and I've started tagging these with things that have actually come in from my various customers. And I think I want to start off with hopefully some easy-ish ones and see if we can knock out an item or two and then maybe move up to something that is of a little bit higher complexity. So this one right here seems like a pretty good candidate. My wife reported this one, and she was trying to delete some stuff with the bulk delete feature that I've had, and she hit a case where it reported back an error condition that she did not expect for reasons that were totally sensible. And as I dug into it, I think I discovered why, but we have to get in there, write the test to prove that it's actually failing, and then work on the fix. So let's do that. Get over to the terminal, and we'll clear out that stuff, and you can see I was working on some documentation. So I guess let's start with where is the issue. So it's related to a bulk delete feature that I have for courses. So let's find it and see if we can perhaps replicate it on the site and then try and replicate it in a unit test and then work backwards from there to try and fix it. So we're going to start up the local web server here and get both GUnicorn running and Tailwind CSS going, and then fire up the actual application server. And go over to school year, which apparently is about to end. So we're going to have to bump this up soon, but that doesn't have to be this week. I can't believe it's another one is already done. The scenario that we're trying to deal with is a scenario where the class is shared. And you can see that here, this math both must be a shared class because it's appearing in both places, and I'm sure I did not give it the same name. So let's go into this and see what tasks are available. Here are multiple, and I'm going to try and go to the multiple delete page and click on some things. Let's try and get rid of task 3 and 4 and 5 and see what it does. If anything, it should hopefully give us the error message that we're expecting based on the report. Yeah, all right, so this is what she saw. Sorry, you do not have permission to delete the selected tasks, which seems really weird because it's her class, her school. So clearly I have a coding bug in here. And so now what we can try and do is from this page, from this bulk delete page, figure out how to replicate this in a unit test. Let's go over to the code, and this is going to be in the courses section. That's the app here. So it's a course view and probably called bulk delete. Bulk delete. So somewhere in here, and it's probably in this actual form where the bug is, which is even better because that means that the form tests are easier to write than other kinds of tests. There's less code to cover, so it'd be awesome if that problem was in there. So actually, let's do that. Let's go over to the form area and see if we can find that same error. All right, so here's the error condition. Sorry, you do not have permission. And you can see what we're doing right here. We've got a list of, we're checking that the list of IDs that they selected, which is this users deletable tasks. No, that's not true. I'm sorry, let's rephrase. So the task IDs is what they actually said, hey, I want to delete this. I want to delete multiple. And the users deletable tasks is what I currently have. And I think it's going to be a matter of putting a distinct call right here. But we'll get to that in a second. So let's go ahead and print out the two different counts to see what the problem is, because it's telling us that they don't match. So they're raising an error there. So let's print the length of the task IDs. And I could do this through a debugger, but I don't feel like it. So we've got that. And then we also want to print the user's deletable tasks count. That's the other thing to check. So the server's reloaded. We should be able to return back to this page. And I'm going to click this again and click this again to have multiple. And I'm going to click the delete button. And it comes right back to this page. It's cleared out everything. And if we go over here, yeah, here's the problem. So we've got 2 and we've got 4. Now the question is, do I want to even bother writing a unit test for this? Or do I want to just fix it? Sometimes it pays off to write a test, especially when you don't know what the fix is. But I'm pretty sure I know what the fix is this time. And so we need to talk about that. So I guess let's bring up the model diagram. In my system, in the modeling here, let's get this all into frame so you can see it. Oh, come on, you silly thing. Resize, please. Why will it not get smaller? Okay, whatever. So what we care about is down over here. We have a course, or we have a course task, I should say. And that's connected to a particular course. And a course is connected to a grade level through an intermediate many-to-many relationship. And the reason for this is because I wanted to have the ability for a grade level to share a course. So there were times where in my family, my 2 kids who are relatively close in age will have a common topic. And so by having this many-to-many relationship, I can have it both in my son's grade and my daughter's grade. So the problem with that, and the reason that we're seeing this bug, which was 2 and 4, is that the SQL query that's happening is double counting because of that many-to-many relationship. So it's, if you can think about it, it's like counting the 2 tasks in one grade, and it's counting the 2 tasks in the other grade. And so even though the 2 tasks they're the same, right? So what really is missing is to check their identity to see that they're distinct. And so that's what's really missing in the query. So if we come down here, and so we've got the grade levels, and you can see that it's this course task object filter is where we need to go. The answer to this problem, I'm like 99% sure of it, is to add a distinct call right here. So what that's going to do is it will look through all of the resulting queries and based on their ID check and say, oh, actually this one and this one match up with this one and this one. So really all we want to return back is 2. So that should get us the right answer to match up the task IDs and the count. So I believe that should fix the problem. And we'll just do some confirmation. We'll skip the unit test because, you know, I don't need that coverage there. It's a really minor thing. And I've verified it once, and I don't think I'm going to have to come in here very much to make sure that I don't do that again. All right, so let's refresh this page, make sure that the app server is still loaded, we're going to come down here, check a couple of these. So we expect lesson 3 and 4 to go away after we confirm. And boom, deleted the 2 tasks. And now we've got lesson 3 and 4 are gone. So that was clearly the right fix. I think we're okay to come in here, get rid of those print statements. And I want to make sure that my test suite's still running. We'll let that run. We'll make sure that the coverage is still there. It should be. We haven't really changed and added any new lines. We've just modified an existing line. And then we'll move on to another issue. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. I'm here happy to have a dialogue with y'all about whatever's on your mind related to Python or Django or I guess other topics too. I try and keep it limited in scope to the web stuff, but I do diverge from that on occasion if there are important things to cover. So that's it. It's really a one-liner. We can commit this, and we'll say make sure bulk delete counts distinct tasks. And this fixes what number was it? 593. One down. 40 to go. Okay. Next. What do we want to look into? Kind of in a mood to improve some bugs if possible, but I know that's not always possible. And some of these might be more complex bugs, so we have to weigh that too. Everything on this page is like way low priority. Basically, over time, you can see some of these date back to 2020 now. So they clearly haven't been something that's been critical for actually running a school for my spouse. So I've not come back to them. So kind of the most relevant, useful stuff is the more recent stuff, and then the stuff that's sort of falling towards the end of the list will be done eventually, I hope. But if that never happened, then be okay. What else could we try here? We've got, this one is not from a customer, but it's still relevant. But I don't know how much control they have over it. Nah, let's not do that one. What's this? Progress report, print bugs. That's the information is in an email that I'm not going to bring up on the stream, so we'll leave that one alone too. All right. Let's see. OBS is telling me I got disconnected, so is this actually streaming anymore? It says it is. We'll go with that. Just a disconnect. Trying to think of what is something worth doing. Oh, this one was sort of annoying. These ones marked as enhancement are definitely additions, so I don't know that I want to tackle them. This one is also technically an enhancement. I probably should start. I didn't start with labeling all these until recently, so I should come through here and groom this a little bit in terms of what is it that we're trying to do. This is an enhancement, and this will help future me or us now figure out what to do. Clean up the students page. What is this? This sounds like a bug based on that description. sort of a bug. All right. Let's try this one. So this is a quote from one of my users. And it's talking about this. There's a student index page that I've got in the app. We can take a look at that. And it's pretty boring right now. And it's missing a bunch of information. And I want to say that the actual information that we want to display there is going to be challenging for what the user is actually requesting. So there's also a possibility that maybe we just punt on it. So here we are. We have this students page. It shows 3 students here, and that it says, 2 of them are enrolled. So come back over here. A is enrolled in 3rd grade. Okay, so it seems like it doesn't have all of the enrollments. It just has the current enrollments. Aha, okay. So she's looking for more information here on this page, when this page just currently has like a single enrollment info. So we can probably include more enrollments. That's the model. Getting back to the modeling, the enrollment model is what connects the student model to the actual school, the grade level, sorry. So you can see there's the connection over here. The enrollment has 2 foreign keys to a grade level and a student. So this this page right here is showing that the students are enrolled. But I guess we can also make this, extend this to show if they were enrolled in previous years as well. The whole point here was to give them a place to enroll if they didn't, but this can be more informational over time. So let's take a look at that page and see what's in there. It might be an opportunity to refactor the page too. Oh, it's already a function-based view. So that's good. So here's the problem. The thing that we render in that page is this roster thing, which is a kind of a custom structure that I built up here that has information about the student. And then it has this one enrollment. That was all that we really cared to show. And so if we want to switch this, we could switch it to all enrollments and have special information for when it's the current year. Like, what do we want to show instead? That's probably the way to go. And so what that's going to do is we'll have inside of this roster, we'll display the student, but we'll also display a list of enrollments. But it gets more complicated than that, sadly. So it's got the current school year. Oh, bummer. This is where something I tried to do with this app, maybe we should talk about this, is I want the app to be simple from the user's perspective. And so sometimes that means hiding the complexity based on the data, so that what I show them is what they should care about, but not too much. And so that means that sometimes my templates are getting a little bit more complex for all of these different data scenarios where you can have more data. And we start to run into that here when we have, here is a what to do if there is a student. Here's the elif if there's a school year 2, so it's different. And here's the actual else. So that's where this gets a little messy. And it changes the logic, because now if it's not just as simple as a test of if there is an enrollment, because there are going to be multiple enrollments if there have been multiple years. So it's like if there is an enrollment for the current year is another thing that we'll have to add in there, which we can do, but again, it all just kind of gets messy. So how is this gonna change? We're still gonna loop over the student objects. So this line will still be true. We'll probably need to break it up so it's not a gigantic list comprehension like this, because there will be a little bit of conditional logic. So we need to, what this is really checking for is that, is there an enrollment for this year? So that's the Boolean condition that we really care about here, which will display that enrollment. But we also want to display other enrollments, which means displaying other school years. Oh, bummer. Unwinding this whole stack. Okay. We probably want the enrollments to be sorted by something, their school year, I would imagine. So the school year should be a sequence in time. That's probably reasonable. So maybe we can sketch in like what this new roster should be, and then update the tests appropriately, and then come over to the template and think through this. So let's comment this out. Let's create a roster. Whoops. We want to say for student in student objects for school, user.school, that doesn't change. The question is, is there more of like a select related to do here? Probably. Or a prefetch related, because we're going to the nested loop. Let's just do the naive version. Let's see the number of queries that's going to call. Maybe it's not worth fretting about. It actually won't be that many queries. When would it be a lot of queries? It would be a lot of queries if there was a really large family, so 8 students or something like that. I don't know, very large, that have done their entire history with School Desk, like K through 12 in the US, the 13 years. And so that's still not that many queries in the scheme of things, like 8 times 13. Was that 104? Is that right? So I think I'm not going to worry about the optimization for this thing, because it's not going to be that many queries. Because the reason I'm talking this out loud is that I'm actively going to be doing nested queries here, which is usually pretty frowned upon. But I think we can do it in a reasonable way. So what we're going to do at the next layer is a query for the enrollments, which is going to be student.enrollments.all. But we definitely want to fetch more data here, because we're going to be displaying more. So the enrollment will have a connection to the grade level, which we want. So we want to do a select related on the grade level. We also are going to want the school year that grade level is connected to display that as well. So that's grade level school year. So we've got those now. We need, so let's go ahead and start populating the roster. So roster append, and maybe it's still possible to do this in a list comprehension. We'll see. No, it won't be, for reasons that will be apparent in a moment. So we'll have the student. That's going to be a student. And then we'll, instead of enrollment singular, we'll have enrollments with the enrollments. And then we're going to need is enrolled this year? Something like that, which we'll put as this, which we'll create in just a second. All right. So coming back over to the template, that is enrolled this year is going to be this if block right here. I'm trying to give it a meaningful semantic name so that it's clear what we're after. So how do we know if it's enrolled this year? Well, all enrollments have to have a school year attached to them, but this method might come back as none. So what we can do is we can do a list comprehension and pass that to any. Yeah. Well, I'll just show it. It'll be easier to see the code. Is enrolled this year. So if any of the enrollments have a matching school year, so that will be the any built in, followed by an iterable of enrollment dot grade level. This is where we're going to need the select related. Otherwise, we'll be doing a bunch of queries in a loop here. School year is equal to school year. So if any of those are true, then we know that one of the enrollments matches up to the current school year. For enrollment in enrollments. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. The other thing I want to now do before I forget is to make sure these enrollments are ordered. So order by the grade level school year. And we might need to reverse that order. I don't know yet, but that will make sure that we're not just getting arbitrary order. It should always match up anyway. I think the default is to order by the ID, but there is a possibility that somebody created like multiple grade levels at once, and that would just be strange. Although I guess the same could be said of school years. So if we really wanted to be accurate, we could do school year start date. That would guarantee a chronology there. Might be overkill. Okay. So now we've got the new pieces of information that I think we want for this side over here. And what we're after next is going to be where it gets a little trickier. Let me take a moment to pause and think about this first. Okay. We only want to display this chunk, all of this chunk for the first time. So how, I didn't really think about that with our Boolean. Like the Boolean says that yes, one of them is the school year, but it doesn't identify which one. And so maybe what we should be doing instead is to add some kind of attribute to the enrollment that we could check against as we're iterating through the enrollments. And that one could be the one that we do some of this extra processing logic on. And then we have this weird else case. Yeah, this gets bizarre. And that's not even all of it, because the roster has an empty state down here. So all these things layer on. And the reason that they layer on is because I'm trying to like guide the user. So like when you are starting with School Desk, there's a lot of information that I don't have, or that the app doesn't have about the user yet. And in order for School Desk to be useful, it needs to have your students, it needs to have the school years for your school, it needs to have grade levels, it needs to have all of this stuff, because only once that information is in, then the engine of the application can start running. And so there's a bunch of guidance along the way to say, hey, here's a little nudge of where you need to go next. And so that's helpful to get onboarded, but it just means that there's a lot of logic to like look at every time I get in here. And I think I probably should start cleaning this up with some partial templates. Like this one's going to get a little out of hand if I don't refactor some of this to see this a little bit more clearly. So let's do, I think here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just take all this content and I'm going to comment it out for a moment, because I know that I want some flavor of it, but I don't know exactly which parts. And so if we come back to the page and refresh, most of it should be gone. Oops. Student object has no attribute enrollments. Shoot. Okay. Surely I did the modeling such that I can do that backwards. Student. Here's the student model. The enrollment model should be later. And it should have a foreign key. But maybe I didn't give it a better name. I didn't. Okay. Whoa. I put it on the wrong thing? Oh, that's not good. I put it on the... Oh, okay. I can also get it to it through the grade level. Okay, so there should be as well a related name for the enrollments on the student. So since I don't have that, am I using enrollment set anywhere? I need to make sure I'm not going to destroy anything by accident. I'm not. Okay, so I think what I can do is I can add related name. Now this isn't going to cause any data, it will cause a database migration, but there'll be no actual data changes. And so we can say, just like the grade level can have the enrollments concept, you can ask it from a different perspective and say, like, what enrollments is the student connected to? So they can use the same related name. And now by changing the related name there, then it'll mean that this attribute should now work. If you don't know Django, when you have a foreign key, so a foreign key, I'll type it out in here in the chat, by default has a related name of, it's whatever the model is, so I'll put that in little brackets, followed by underscore set. So as an example, the enrollment model has the student foreign key would default to enrollment set. So that's what's going on there. But you can override that to give it a more natural name. enrollment set, I mean, enrollment set works and is easy to remember most of the time, but it is nicer to just kind of use the natural pluralization. And I think they call it enrollment set because English plural rules, they don't want to have too much magic in the framework, which I appreciate. Like, you know, sometimes plural can change depending on the word in particular. But in this context, I just want the simplistic name. Okay, that should give us the power to come back here and refresh this page. And now we're just left with the student as the top, which matches up with what I expect out of the template. So the next step that I want to do is I want to enrich the students page by iterating through each of the enrollments and showing like what was the student enrolled for that year. And I guess this is also where I can put in, we can do past versus present. Like in other areas of the app, I've tried to use past tense where appropriate, say like the student was enrolled or was a part of something, but that thing is over. So here's a scenario where if it's not the current school year, but there are other school years, we could just say the student was enrolled in that particular grade level that year. And it just adds, I think, to the level of polish on the application. Okay. So next, we've got, trying to think of which one of these I want to show though. I think I only want to go into all that extra logic if it doesn't make sense to show this for every past enrollment. That's old. That would be old information. So we want to kind of start with the ones that are in the past. So let's say for enrollment in student info enrollments, that's a starting point. And I think here's where I want to change the logic on these. I want to go over these enrollments and I want to essentially add an attribute for a Boolean state here. So we'll say for enrollment in enrollments, and then we'll say enrollment dot is current is equal to the enrollment grade level school year equal to, whoops, this should be an assignment, not equality, and then equal to school year. That's going to resolve to a Boolean. We can take out this thing that is only aware of one level of knowledge, and now every enrollment knows that if it's the current year or not. So that'll give us kind of two paths. We'll say if enrollment is current, that's when we're going to do all the complex checking about whether to prompt them to enroll or not. Otherwise, we just want to be informative and say like, hey, this is, you were enrolled, and now we can display that, which is coming back to the request from the user. That's what she was asking for. I was actually maybe asking for the future. Ooh. What's that? Ooh, that's tricky. because, oh, shoot. So really the scenario she was trying to cover is my kids were in 2021. She was preparing for 2022, and she wanted to see that she had in fact enrolled them for 2022 to set up the school year. So she was actually more interested in the future case, but we have to also consider the past. So it's not enough to say that it's current or not. We really have to know if it's future, and that would give us the ability to display for the future language, use future tense, and then use present tense, and then use past tense, all three. Oh man. What I thought was an easy feature is turning out to be not. Okay. We can do this though. There's nothing stopping us. We could say, we know it's the current. We still want that. That's still going to be the complex case where we have to show extra buttons and stuff. And then we want sorry, I'm thinking through this now because it's just the number of state possibilities just exploded. So we could also say, we could add in more of these. This might be dumb, but we'll roll with it for a minute and see if it feels terrible. So the is past, how do we know that it's past? Well, I just told you that school year from this method could return a none. So we can't, well, there it goes. It's about to tell us. It's an optional school year, which means that we really have to do a Boolean on the, it first has to check, is there an actual school year that's current? If not, then it's, the is past it's really immaterial because there's no current school year to check against to compare for past or present. So there's that, and then we would say enrollment dot grade level dot school year is less than, nope, dot start date is less than school year dot start date. So there's one way to get the right calculation there. Technically, is future, we already, so we don't need to calculate that again. We can now say, and again, this still might be a bad idea, so I'm still just poking at this to see if it feels right or not. So the is future is a check that it's not the current and it's not the past, right? Not enrollment dot is current and enrollment dot is past. If both of those conditions are true, then we can only deduce that it's the future. So that gives us all states in time relative to the current school year if it's available. Now the question is, how do we want to represent this or go through this state? What's the priority order? And what changes if it's a future? We can only show we only want to show the enrollment button if there's a current school year. Oh, and this is already passed. If you already enrolled, it doesn't matter. Then there's no point in trying to show you an enrollment button. It's already done. So, oh, okay, goodness gracious. Okay. So we still need to check this is current attribute. Like, we need one Boolean condition for all of them. If you're not enrolled this year, we need the possibility to show you to enroll for the current year. Otherwise, we're just going to show you all the enrollments. So, is enrolled this year is still something we need as a single thing to check. And that's going to be equal to any of enrollment dot is current for enrollment in enrollments. Maybe we put that part before the loop so that the button will have a prominent display. Yeah, that's starting to feel right. Is enrolled this year. Which I think will simplify this. So it becomes basically for each student, there's a call to action of your student is not enrolled this year. Go ahead and enroll them. And then otherwise we can show just the list of enrollments of they were enrolled here, they will be enrolled here, and so on. I'm still not sure, I'm still not 100% convinced that that's perfect, but it is probably okay. But it does simplify. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry if this is hard to track. This is hard to track for me too. So hopefully you're bearing with me as like this logic is kind of confusing. I think I'm getting a handle on most of it, but I'm not doing a great job of explaining it because it's a bunch of Boolean conditions. I think this is the case though. So let's try and put it into, get the enroll button for the concise location where it should be, which should be if there's a school year and not, and yeah, here it is. Student info is enrolled this year. So when those two conditions are true, then we want to show that enrollment button, right? Which is right here. Put that there. I forgot a div to close it. And then I think all the rest, all the inside is still accurate because we've got, looking at the inside info, it's still the same URL we want to send them to, the enrollment create page. It still is looking at the student ID. It's still looking at the school year because we've checked that the school year is true. And so, yeah, that feels right. I think that I think this should show up in my test data for Ben, if I did that correctly, which is like the third student. There it is, cool. All right. Cool part is that simplifies down here some of this more complex stuff. So, well, okay, I lied. I wanted to show, I only want to show this if there's something to enroll into. If you don't have any grade levels, then if that page that you'd follow to wouldn't take you anywhere meaningful. So, it's probably a need. I had this logic here, and I had it per student. Okay, so this is still, I could still use this. I think I probably still need all of this stuff. And keep the has grade levels thing. Let's take all of it. Put it there. Uncomment it. And now we need to put the end if here. Does that match up? So if there's a school year and the student is not enrolled this year, we want to check if there are grade levels. Then we can show them that enrollment button. That's right. Or else we need to say, to enroll this, please add a grade level to the current school year, and then give them the call to action to do that. Okay. I think that's the right thing to do. So that allows us at this point to eliminate from here to here. Still have this else case. I'm not sure what to do about that totally yet. It might still go up here. Not positive yet. Because here's some of the change, actually. The roster, this roster exists if you have students, any students at all, whether there's enrollments or not. So that's the right logic, to have the if and the else with showing the empty students include for that scenario. So that's one level of data complete. So the next level of data that needs to be captured is this scenario where you don't have a school year or a grade level. And that's what I was trying to show, is like you've fallen through all the other data is missing, and here's where you show that. And I think that's going to go up. Trying to figure out if this can go in the for loop or not. It must go in the for loop because I already have it for a specific student. So that's probably where we had that elif case up here. It's really something like this. But then what does this become an elif for? Probably back to that having the school year. Yeah, I think so. All right, well, getting right back to where I was, which is a little annoying, but hey, what do you do? Hey Logan, welcome. I am struggling tonight, but that's part of it, right? Like, the struggle is real. All right, so we need to simplify this if block. And now we're just going to ask, if you're not enrolled this year, and there are grade levels, then we can give the user the option to say, hey, there's something to enroll. And that only comes up when the school year actually had a value. So like if this was going to be school year equal none, then the grade levels would come back as grade levels would be false. So that's okay. So that's satisfied, checked all the boxes. There's grade levels, there's school years, there's students. Yeah, streaming can be, especially I'm like deep in the heart of the domain logic for this particular app right now, and so it's gonna be tough if you're not accustomed to seeing what I'm used to seeing. So I hope everybody's doing okay. Did I whiteboard it? Now I should get a whiteboard. I should get some like digital whiteboard that I can, and I actually even have, I've got a little bamboo drawing tablet over there that I haven't quite figured out how to hook it up well. My desk arrangement is not perfect for that, but maybe someday I'll try it out. Find some technology that'd be good to sketch this out. But I think I've got something that feels named about right. So if the student's not enrolled this year, first check, are there grade levels? If there are, that's checked all the boxes. So then we can give them the UI to have the enroll button. If there's a school year, so if that's not the case, there are no grade levels, but there is a school year, then we can tell them, hey, you need to add a grade level first. And so we can send them off to the create grade level page. If neither of those things are true, there's no grade level, there's no school year, then we say, all right, you need to go add both of these, and you got to go add your school year first and send them there. So that kind of gets like the previous logic, frankly, which I've just moved around and reconvinced myself that it was right, which is frustrating, but hey, what can you do? And then that gets us to the rest of the enrollments. The rest of this stuff is like, now that we have this, I want to display the enrollments and then factor in this new state that we've added of current, past, and future. Because I can put in, I'll probably start by putting the dumb version that is literally just the same thing that was already there of, you know, Ben is enrolled in such and such grade level in the blank year. And as I say that out loud, maybe there's a way to change the language so that it doesn't have to use past, present, or future, and just kind of lists it all. That might even be the best case scenario. Then it would simplify logic across the board, and it might just look more natural anyway. Because as I think about how this is going to display, if those are all sentences, and it's listed out in bullet point form, just changing the past and present language is going to lose some symmetry. So you're going to have grade levels that don't quite, well, not vertically. The vertically will be the same, but grade levels that don't match up horizontally line by line. Yeah. So I think we can ditch this. I think this is the information that we want to show for the enrollment. Let's just take all that out, plop it right there. We'll get rid of that comment. We'll get rid of this and do this, uncomment that stuff. And then what? We have the closing for loop. So this is all just for the enrollment display. We still have the student info first name, but now we can drop, we're going through the loop here. So we're just going to call it enrollment directly because that's the local variable in the loop. And again, here we've got enrollment. Okay, that might even be it. Let's see how it looks. Yeah. That's what I thought was going to happen. There's a couple things about this that I don't like. I'm imagining a family that has used School Desk for years. And the enroll button is going to be at the top for each student. So this data set's not very good because there will be stuff that will display underneath the enroll button later. And so first thing I want to do is I want to change the ordering. I want to put the newest grade first. Let's come over here. Pretty positive we have to get, well, actually I'm not yet. I know that we want to order this in the other way. So we can do that with Django by adding the negative. And that should flip so that third grade comes before second grade now. Yep. All right. Next. This is where the English sentence, like I'm not digging it. And it's only going to get worse if I change this so that there's a way to make a page editable. I can never remember how to do this off the top of my head. You can go to DevTools and you can go to the document body and say content editable equal true. Is that gonna work? Yeah, there it is. Cool. That's a fun little trick. It only works obviously on this one page view, but it just makes it so you can see, like if you want to poke around on what's this text change going to do, you can set content editable on the whole body and it will modify this stuff. So here we have a scenario where what I'm trying to show is if I actually made this configurable to be aware of whether it's the current or the past, is this what I want? Because like there's also like this other scenario where it'll say mark, like what's the future version of this too? So there's the current is enrolled, but it's also is enrolled for the next year. So the future is going to look kind of strange as well because it'll almost look like double present, but that's not really the case. What is, you know? So just kind of mocking it in there. So you'll have this like is thing, and then some of these will say was, and it'll, like this is grammatically correct. Mark is enrolled, even though it's in the future. Mark is enrolled in the current year. Mark was enrolled. So those are the that's the right language, but it feels weird. So what are ways that we could get around this? What could we do differently? The most obvious thing is to forget all the natural language and just put it in a table and say 4th grade 2020, 2022, 2023. But it starts to feel like, why do we care? Well, we care because my user cared. That's the reminder, is the user wanted this. So it's not why do we care, it's how do we display this in a way that will feel natural to the user. Yeah, I could just send it. I think what I'm trying to avoid is like adding that custom logic language because it just feels kind of clunky to me. And to be honest, I don't think my wife super cares about like the actual what gets displayed here as long as it's informative. So that probably leans me towards what is the simplest thing possible that will work. So I'm thinking of, let's see if we can find another decent example. We have, oh, now I can't click links anymore because I made the whole page editable. Refresh. School year's list is like, well, that's too basic. This is a page I never really came back to much. That's not really what I'm looking for. I could do a simple table of like school year. We could make them clickable if we wanted to. That might be nice. So a table like this will say school year and grade level. And there could be a column for, sometimes I have actions that I do. Where's an example of that? On the course, I believe. Oh, I guess I got rid of the label. But the users are used to seeing an actions column like this. It has all of their ability to move stuff up and down and add new stuff. So that feels good enough. So let's steal this table from the reports page and put it in there. Whoops, I'm recording a macro. Stop. Come on, Git. Cut it out. What did I say? Reports index. And these are the enrollment reports, I guess. Yeah, the table tells the story. It'll have the chronology and everything. Well, not as good question. I don't actually have. I apologize if I butchered your name. I will do that regularly. I don't actually have Redis set up right now, so I could not get much benefit out of that right now. But I'm not too worried about. There are pages that are going to be expensive in the app. This is a page that will be pretty infrequently used. So what I'm very keen to do is avoid premature optimization. Obviously, I want, if there's a really quick, obvious win, then sure, throw it in there. But I don't want to put additional technology and complexity in there if I can get away with the simple, stupid thing that's fast enough, So I'm going to try dropping in this whole table. In fact, it's even got like the structure. So it's got enrollments. So I could really get away with this. Student. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to this. Student info dot enrollments. Just for the moment. See what it does. I'm going to leave the other stuff. Come back to that page. So it's going to get really messy here for a little bit. We're kind of working at this at multiple layers. So too many columns, clearly, but it has the makings of what would be useful. The difference is I probably want to change these things. Because this is something I know about my wife at this point. She is a big fan of like, oh, I want to click that, and very natural of like, oh, these are things you care about, so let's make them clickable. So we'll probably change this year thing to a link. We're going to drop this column. We're going to drop these columns except for one. We'll put in an action that has this little X icon so that they can delete the enrollment if they want to. Yeah, we'll just get rid of all this stuff. I think this is going to do what we want. We might even be able to ditch all of the column headings. Like, it should be pretty obvious, right? Like, if you see 2021, 2022, you know that's the school year. I don't know. We'll play with it. So we're going to go to, we're going to need 3. So we can still use the grid size. So I'm using Tailwind Grid here. And it's 6 columns, so it has 6, it's using the 6 grid unit, but we're going to have fewer than that, so we need to get it back up to a full 6. So get rid of this, get rid of 2 of these, and then get rid of what's inside that tag, and then change this to be, we can leave this as 1/6 of the action, and that leaves, well, let's just make them all symmetric for now. 2, 2, 2. And if it looks dumb, we'll get rid of stuff. Now we can get rid of the student column. And we need only one other column afterwards. So for the moment, I'll just leave that one and delete those. All right, what do we have left? Oh, we didn't modify the spacing on these ones, which is why it looks weird. And because this is getting confusing to look at, let's get rid of, not get rid of it, let's just hide this for loop for now. All right. Yeah. I'm not liking the header. So get out of here. And then change that to 2, 2. All right. We have to maybe switch. We've got the dotted line here on the top because it has a header. Things that you don't foresee. If I put it in the bottom, it's just going to push it to the bottom. I think there's got to be a way to say, like, first row stuff. All right, Tailwind, talk to me. First, handling first line, first letter, first child. Okay, this is, I think, what we want. So we don't want a border on the first row. That's what we're after. So I think we can do that by saying, going to the end here and then saying first border 0. How'd that do? Nope. Border width, border 0. What the heck? That should have worked. I also have flux on and I can barely see this yellow, so I'm going to turn that off for a second. Okay. I don't know if you saw, but my screen just got way brighter. Okay. So I was looking at the school year. So we should be able to inspect this page, and that this guy, oh, it did work. But it took it off on all of them. Oh, because it's not actually, it's not a real table. So they're all firsts. I'm faking a table here. So everything looks like a first from the HTML's point of view. Well, junk. Let's try border bottom, see how bad it looks. Yeah, that also looks bad. We can do this in Django. Do it in Django. So we'll keep it as border top. The difference, though, is that we don't want this for the first for loop. So in Django, if you're inside the for loop in a template, you can use a context variable that suddenly becomes available. So we can say, if not for loop, I think is the name of the variable, first. I think that's right. And then we need to close that. Okay, this model diagram needs to go away. Keeps messing with my Alt tab. There we go. So refresh. We got to apply that to all of them, but that you can see it accomplished the effect. So this is the first for loop through the enrollments. So it's a different semantic level. It's not at the HTML level. It's now what's in the context of Django. And we need to apply that to each of the columns, and it'll achieve what we're looking for. It just looks kind of nasty, but that's sort of unavoidable. So, and here's where the one time that I would like multi-cursor support, or I wish that Vim had slightly better multi-cursor support, but 99% of the time I don't need it. So I don't fret about it too much. Okay. So that does that. I think that's right for what we want. We don't care about this view thing. We instead want we want this enrollment delete. Let's see if we can just take it like this and swap. What happens if we get rid of that completely and just have that? I'll fix the spacing in a moment. Oh, yuck. What happened? Items center probably needs to happen. Also, we lost the color, because there's a fill current here, but there's no color. And the color was set on this stuff. So I lost too much. Didn't take enough. Let's take this whole thing, this div, do that. Still not going to be quite right in terms of the positioning, but I think it'll at least have the right color stuff. Yeah, there we go. And then if I hover over it, yep. Hey, Shivan. Welcome. You know, Shivan, I was actually just thinking about you today. I was like, I haven't seen him in a while. Nothing, you know, I'm sure you're doing your own things, but I appreciate you joining in today. Okay, so here's hopefully your eye. This is the kind of things, stuff that you notice over time is like, there's clearly a spacing problem right here. And also it sits on the high on the line here. So what it's telling me is like the position of this in the flex box is like hanging towards the top. And so what we need to do is tell Flexbox to, hey man, you need to like center my stuff, which I think we can do with just items center. And context, this is Tailwind stuff. So items center maps to something else in Flexbox. And that brought it down. Did it bring it down enough? Wow, look what it did. That was weird. You see that? There's like a gap now. Nothing is easy. Come on. Something happened. Tailwind CSS is amazing. That is totally true. And usually when something goes bad, it's my fault. Not Tailwind's fault. So there's something happening here. How can I show this better? Whoops. Can I show it if I blow it up here? It's still up here. It's so light, it's might be hard to see on the stream. But I just put on the item center and it just totally like bombed out on this dotted line, the border between the stuff. So it's like the spacing between things is not consistent. So this is what I would think would make sense. I bet there's like a weird padding or something on the actual SVG somewhere. If I were some hiding padding, where would I be? Height and width set to 4. That's fixed. There's some PX4 here. I don't think we need that anymore. But I don't think that's going to cause the gap to go away. No, it just brought that right over to the edge. There still is this like vertical gap. So somewhere, if this is what's right, so it's got, you can see there's the purple is the padding. That's the P1 that we're looking at. And that's the straightforward thing here. And then inside of here, where are you getting this extra padding that's screwing stuff up? I bet it's baked into one of these attributes. What if I take out block? Nope. Well, that's baffling. What can I do about that? Maybe if I give everything more padding, it'll balance out. What is block? Block. It's block has to do with the DOM and how stuff is displayed in the DOM. So it's a Tailwind attribute, of course, but it maps to this display CSS attribute. And so you have inline block, and block. And you can see their definitions here. Essentially, it has to do with like the white spacing on stuff. And since anchor tags don't normally have block dimension attributes to them, sometimes you need to add block to certain things. Yeah, we could try. I'm getting to this. I'm comfortable getting to that point where it's like, let's just throw crap on there and see what happens. Justify center. Sure. That is one that I sometimes sprinkle in there, and it seems right. No, not this time. Oh, no problem. Okay, what else could we do here? The other, again, not being a super critical important page, the easiest thing to do would just be to say, forget it. Let's just ditch the border. How about we just do that? Because what will you be left with? You have a list. think it'll be fine. Let's try it. Let's bring this back down to a normal size. We'll also keep this a lot simpler. So I'm going to delete to there. Okay, then we've got, oh yeah, you barely tell the difference. And it's, even though it doesn't have like any visual guides, the maximum this table would get, at least for a US student, is going to be at most 13 of these rows, unless some family is doing something where they're doing more than one grade level per school year, which I guess is possible. You know, people can use this in ways that I won't anticipate. But even then, it would be a very small table. You'd be able to see the whole thing in like half a page. So I'm going to leave it. That feels actually fairly clean. So what do we have left to do? I think the smart things left to do is make these things clickable so that it'll take to the school year if they want. And then that might be enough to call it done. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think you're right, Shivan, is that CSS does have very diminishing returns. There's a certain like minimum bar though, that where if you don't put enough effort into it, it comes across as like really amateur. So you have to invest some time, but I think I have enough basic primitives here that like the page is holding together. You know, I've got the kind of hover effects, and there will be links that people can get and hovers, and so it will feel complete and not just like a sketch. But yeah, I don't think we need all sorts of visual flourishes that really make it go crazy. Now, granted, if I was a designer, I'd probably be like, what are you talking about? You wanted to go really knock people's socks off too. All right, so where are we? We have, we're done with this. We got this all worked out. We now have, we've got this logic for what to do about when they want to enroll. So when there's a call to action, we'll have some stuff there. And I think that we can now move this tag over in line with the rest. That's all of that stuff. I'm gonna go one more level in here. I don't know. I know it's gonna render differently, but I kind of actually like having this continue to cascade forward and stuff's on different levels. So we need one more thing in here to actually link to the school year. And so that's going to be an anchor tag. That should be a href then URL schools. Oh, can I do all this from memory? School year detail? I doubt I can do it all from memory. We'll try. And then that would be enrollment, grade level, school year, ID, if I got it. Close that off. This will be a class, minimally, of underline on the anchor so that it will show up when you, actually we want to do it on hover. I want there to be an underline there so that they know it's a link. And then at the end, we can close the anchor tag. Let's see if I got it. Might have got that URL path wrong. Nope. Nailed it. Sweet. So rarely does that happen. All right. Perfect. And then, so kind of smashed all that in there. Let's make this not a million miles long. Class. And then we can move the closing div. Okay. And I want to link. Oh. Grade level kind of doesn't have a page. So maybe this is enough. We've got the school year. Grade level sort of has a page. Thanks, Steven. Thanks for dropping in. Take care. So on the school year, and you can see it here. Here's the anchor. So if I wanted to link to a grade level, maybe the thing to do would be to recreate this anchor link here. Still kind of sucks, to be honest. I don't really like it, because it's like, who cares? I mean, if you clicked this and it dropped you here, I guess you might want to click the add course button. If you came this way, I'm trying to think of why you would, what use cases would be there where getting to the school year versus getting straight to the grade level on that school year is going to make a bit of difference. And I think I like that in that it reduces the number of things to click on. There are fewer actions that you should be worried about, fewer opportunities to make mistakes and click delete buttons by accident, all of that sort of stuff. So I think I want to leave it there. We've got this little table. It's got both of them. It tells you that they're enrolled. Now, all right, let's go back to the issue and see if we've really answered the heart of it. I want to make sure that it feels complete. Now, some of the challenge here is what this doesn't do a good job of is future state. So if they happen to enroll for a future school year, it will show up on that list. It will appear in this list and it'll all be good. But if they wanted to enroll for a future school year from this page, you can't really do that. And I think I'm willing to kind of punt on that part right now. I don't think it's super important that they be able to enroll from everywhere. It's more of like enrolling for a current school year. Feels reasonable. So I'm going to declare victory on this. Now the question, okay, so here's the part we haven't done for sure. And that is fix the tests. So now if we go to the student index page, it's absolutely going to be wrong. So test views, student index view, some of these will blow up. So it has the roster has changed, the structure has changed, so there's a lot of stuff that's not accurate anymore. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, we didn't actually go back and clean up the view file, so it's got a bunch of junk in there that I don't think I need anymore. So let's open that up again and reevaluate this to see, like, is this still required? We had definitely needed this is enrolled this year thing. And, right, let's just make sure I'm talking sense here. So we use the is enrolled this year. That's something that we should check for. And we changed from enrollment to enrollments. So we made it a plural and we made it a list. So we can definitely ditch this aspect of that view. And we didn't end up using is current, is past, or is future, except in the is enrolled this year. So I think what we should do is simplify this back to what we had previously, which was to say, instead of is current, let's replace it with what is current meant. So is level dot school year is equal to school year. So we've got that. Now it's not defined in terms of these things, and we can delete all of that code. And to take it one step further, to kind of condense this down, we can probably drop this here. And instead of having a local variable, just do that. Because we don't need that local variable for anything else. We're just putting it in this dictionary. We can go straight for the kill and put it in that way. This looks pretty clunky with the way that black is rendering this. So we could say, we could pull this out into a local variable here. Let's just try it, see if it actually improves things or just makes it worse or makes it no change. We'll call it student info because that's what we called it in the template. So we'll give it some symmetry. And then we'll say, we'll append, whoops, didn't give it the full name, but we'll append student info right there. Yeah, it didn't really help that much. I guess it did a little bit because otherwise black was trying to put the closing parenthesis on a line by itself, which is just kind of wasteful. I like black most of the time, but there are times where it's like, okay, come on, black. We don't really need that. So this feels probably about as tight as it can go for now. And plenty of people could argue and say, hey, you're putting way too much stuff in your view. But for me, it's all here. The data that I am putting here is very context dependent for this template and this template only. So I feel okay with that. It's not like something that I would be reusing in a bunch of places. So I'm feeling pretty decent about that. So I think we're done with the template. We need to make sure this test case passes, and then we need to do it in context now of what I believe is like the polished view. So essentially we're coming back through and we're cementing the view with the test code in case I ever change it by accident in the future. And, we're showing that the template depends on these attributes. And if I change these attributes by accident, the test code should yell like, hey, wait a minute, you're about to change something that the template depends on and you're going to break the template. So what do we need in here? We need to have, we still have the has grade levels checked. That's fine. I think what we really need to change is the roster. How many tests we're actually breaking? There's only 6. So has roster test unenrolled student. Okay, so we'll have to revisit what that test is doing. So the first bit here is we're going to check for, this is enrollments. And we are going to put that in a list. I think that's right. Maybe not, because this is actually a query set. We'll see. Whoops, I didn't mean to run all 6 tests again. Yeah, you can see it's trying to compare a query set here. But that's fine. We need to, it's going to evaluate eventually, so I think it's okay. Bummer, John. Sorry you missed out. We're kind of cleaning up the features. I've been working on some like usability fixes this evening, and we cleaned up a page where it gave it more context, and now we're at the stage where I'm going through the tests to kind of make sure that what I put in the template as context expectations is matched up by the unit test to prevent me from breaking it in the future. And let's see. I think this last thing should be, is enrolled this year, should be true the way I wrote this test. Let's just try it. Whoops. There we go. Cool. That test passes. All right. This test was not passing. What's different? Bunch of stuff. So we need to check. Okay, got it. So this is not too hard of a change either. So enrollments is going to be empty, and is enrolled this year will be false. Omar, what editor do I use? I am using Vim. And why am I not using VS Code? I have used Vim since I started doing software development professionally in 2006. So I guess I've been using a single editor for 15 years. I have no ill will towards VS Code. In fact, if you see all of my open stuff down here, you see one of them is VS Code. So I'm currently teaching my son some coding skills. He's a 4th grader, and we're working on some Python stuff. And so I'm teaching him VS Code. So I think it's a great editor. My take on it is use the editor that makes you happy. For me, I have invested a lot into using Vim, and found a lot of value out of that. So if I could offer some unsolicited advice, I don't know you were asking for advice, but I'll offer it anyway, is find an editor and stick with it for as long as you can. Because what you will find, or what I have found, I'll speak from personal experience, is that time investment is going to pay off dividends for you in the long run. I've seen plenty of people go through the editor cycle of going from Sublime to Atom to VS Code, and that's fine. That's their choice. But I think what happens is your muscle memory. You start to, like, every time you make a switch, you have to learn new shortcuts. And yeah, you can do some stuff where maybe you change the bindings to be like your last editor and try and bring that along. But it's some relearning. So what I've instead chosen to do is pick an editor that has been around for a really long time. Vim has been around for, 30 plus years at this point, I think, in some form or another. And then I've made it more and more my own, and so it allows me, my fingers, to just have all of my muscle memory so that I know what to do, and yet I'm still able to, like, kind of modernize it along the way and just customize it over time. So that's my advice about editors. So if you're using VS Code and it's making you happy, awesome. Sometimes, like, I'm really jealous of VS Code. There's like some really cool features in there. Like, oh man, I would love a great debugger. But such is life. Trade-offs abound. Ooh, Edline? I don't even know that one. I know that Vim, like, when you hit colon in Vim, what you're actually doing is switching to ed, or an ed mode is actually, like, what it's called, which is, and it's notice that it's a single line, like in the bottom of my terminal, it's a single line where I can type stuff, right? And yeah, precursor to VI. So ed was designed back when, like, it would literally print out, you're at a terminal that had a printer, and you had, like, one line at a time where you type commands and stuff. So different era of computing. It's funny how some of it kind of, like, leaks into more modern stuff. Omar, great. I'm glad that was useful advice for you. Yeah, get comfortable with your tools. Like, here's another little bit about this. So for a long time, I worked at Lockheed Martin, and as a defense contractor, I worked on a variety of programs where I had to go into classified labs. I wasn't doing anything crazy. I was working on like GPS and some other satellite systems and stuff. Nothing nefarious. But some of the capabilities, since the GPS constellation is run by the U.S. Air Force, it just means that there are aspects of it that are classified. They're really boring. I'll just throw that out there. But in that mode, in going to classified labs, you couldn't bring your configuration with you. Everything from the outside world was like not accessible, right? Because they deliberately don't want a connection to the internet, so nobody that can steal classified information. And in that world, I operated on a mentality of I will just try and use whatever default thing is available and get good with that, and have as minimal of a configuration as I can get away with. And I did that for years, and believe that was a good way to go. And it still can be. Obviously, if I was still working in a classified laboratory, I'd have to operate in that way somewhat. But I got out of defense contracting. I got out of a space where I had to be in these isolated labs, and then had my own computer. In fact, the same computer that I'm doing the stream on today. And got some advice from a coworker at my next job of like, hey, you should really customize your environment and make your tools your own. And what happened is, to me anyway, is that my productivity shot through the roof because I was able to add a bunch of tools that I wasn't using before. For instance, one of the tools that I can't live without today is now this fuzzy finder that allows me to like go wherever I want to go. So if I want to go to a student views file, I can type a few characters and get there. And I didn't have any tool like that. So the way I would get around, crazy enough, was like just being in my terminal and navigating to different directories and homeschool, and I'd go up and down directories and do all sorts of crazy stuff in order to accomplish what I needed. So that prospect of actually investing in my tools and taking the time to learn about what's available and taking the time to customize it for me was exactly what I needed to make my productivity really improve. So invest in your tooling. It's good for your overall experience as a developer, and yeah, it's a good way to go. Let's see. Is this test now passing? Hey, cool. Let's run one last test here. Make sure all the coverage is working. And if so, I think that'll kind of like wrap us up for the stream for this evening. And we'll mark off this last issue that we've been working on, and maybe talk about what's to come. I think this was a good kind of cleansing between projects, I guess. Was to take on something small, work on a couple of usability things. I'm trying to think if I want to do that again next week, or if I want to move on to the next kind of project. Oh no! Now we're missing coverage. Oh, what happened? All right, well, I guess we gotta go find what we're missing. Missing line 366. Really? Did we? Ah, okay. Well, I guess we get to clean out a method that's not being used anymore. So this method was for a particular school year. It was only used in this one place, and we don't need it. Okay. Adios. That was a big one-liner. Oh my word. All right, let's let it run again. Make sure we got it. Because now what we're doing is we're getting all of the enrollments. So we're not asking for in a particular school year. somebody might have said like, well, hey, that looks like a useful method that you might use it. So here's another piece, just like knowledge that I've learned, is get rid of code you're not using. Like, even if you think you might use it in the future, you probably won't. This is the first thing. If you do find a situation where you would, it's in your version control, so you could always recover it if you happen to remember where it is. The reality is, a lot of times that those messages or those methods might change. Like, you might delete something from a year ago, think, oh, I'll just bring that back, and then discover that actually the code has changed so much in the intervening time that the thing you thought you were going to bring back and save yourself a bunch of time doesn't actually even work anymore. So don't leave it commented out either. Like, it's not. I see that a lot too. Of like, people are like, I think I might use this, and you won't. Just get rid of it. It's okay. Version control is your friend. So keep that in mind. All right. So now we're gonna have other things that I'm now missing a migration here because I added this related name thing. Did we keep it? Did I still end up using enrollments? If we didn't, we can get rid of that too. Yeah, I still used it. Okay. So we're going to make migrations on the students app. Apparently there's more cleanup to this than I realized. And you can see it added this alter enrollment student thing. First thing to do is I'm going to go in there and check on it, and Black's going to complain. So I'm going to just save in that file, which will run Black automatically. And then we can do manage SQL migrate students 0007. SQL migrate is a cool command. It will tell you what SQL is about to run. Now, I happen to be using SQLite locally. Somebody's commented to me on YouTube of like, hey, are you aware that SQLite and Postgres behave differently? Yes, I am. It's a certain amount of risk that I'm taking on in this project. So, sometimes when you think about migrations, be cognizant of the fact is this running against my actual database and it doesn't really matter all the time. Like, it doesn't matter in this case, but sometimes it does. But what I'm here trying to show is that I added that related name attribute. There's no database changes with this. This happens to be the SQLite syntax for this. The Postgres syntax would show the same thing. There's nothing to change in the database for adding a related name. That's purely part of the actual Django modeling stuff. So that's all good. All right, so we've got, hopefully everything passes. Oh no, didn't pass. Had isort in the wrong order. Pre-commit is amazing. You should use it. And then we'll say rework the student index page to show all enrollments. And that fixes number 500. Oh, cool. We'll push that up. Oh, very satisfying. Purple. Okay. So next time, what can we do? You can see I've got clearly like enhancements that are requested by customers. So we might tackle one of these. We might work on, I think I said I wasn't going to do this one because I didn't include the details. So this is probably not a good candidate for the stream because it's got a bunch of like private customer stuff there. But we have a bunch of like enhancements that are things that have been recent requests from customers that I kind of was promising to customers at some level, but saying like, hey, I'm working on this other PDF bundle thing first, and I'm only working on one thing at a time. But things that might make them happy. So I think we'll pick one of them. I don't know which will be a good fit, which will show off anything new, but that's what we'll do. I want to thank you for joining in. I do take all this content and post up on YouTube. If you can give me a like if you are here, that helps other people discover this stuff and hopefully gain some experience themselves. And want to shout out to all my patrons on Patreon. If you would like to support me, you can at patreon.com/mblayman. As a way to say thanks. I think I should probably set up YouTube member stuff too. I haven't done that yet. It's not been a high priority for me. But anyway, that's immaterial. I do thank you all for joining in this evening. Hope it was fun, and I'll see you next time. Take care.